What's going on, guys? We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We appreciate all you guys watching out there in the world of the interwebs.
It's been a while, man. I hadn't been
I know.
here.
After much debate and mystery and wonder, people were beginning to wonder if we liked each other anymore.
just working. And
we never really liked each other.
You're coaching soccer. My kids are playing.
Yep.
Levi's playing a little bit of everything.
Sports.
Yeah. Brian's still on the swim team, and he's
and you're boat captain, your older son in high school fishing.
There's a good chance that my son's the worst one on the swim team in the state. He's horrible. In fact, he can't even actually dive. He doesn't actually come off the board.
He just kind of belly flops out there.
Well, he does a V. He kind of jumps and does a V and falls straight down. And so he hasn't really done real well, and he doesn't like it because he's got to get up at 5 a.m. for practice.
Yeah.
And which I love, because now that means everybody's getting up at 5 a.m.
You're not
I'm not the only one anymore, so it's pretty great. So
yeah, our schedules have just been crammed. We both have, which most of you in here have probably raised families and all that. Both have 2 young boys that are in sports and doing all kinds of extracurricular activities, and y'all know what the time that entails. It has been very difficult for us to link up. I've called him and he's called me many times trying to get a filming day together, and it just between that and the guide business and everything else. And but no,
it's been busy.
For any that were wondering, there's no. I don't dislike him any more than I did 6 months ago.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's a great time of year. Just kind of go over briefly what's going on. That last cold front before the one that hit last night did us a lot of good. It did us a lot of good. It got the water temps down in the 70s. It started making some better quality fish, some of those, slot fish and stuff that Lake Fork's kind of famous for. Well, they have started showing up in the really easy to predict, obvious type of areas. You can catch them on the obvious type of baits. Anything that looks like a shad that moves pretty much can get a bite right now. From a quality fish, it's not just the full fall bite where you're catching 40 or 50 a day, but you're getting some quality bites every day, and there's plenty of numbers of smaller fish to go with it. So it's a lot of fun. Now we just had this cold front. I was supposed to fish today, but the rain ended up holding on all the way through noon. So
wasn't even an option.
Yeah, it was blowing 800 miles an hour, 40 degrees, and raining for most of the morning. So we ended up saying that doesn't sound like fun.
It was like storming this morning.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Started at like
it was
11.
lightning out there too, and you can't go lightning. So we held off on the trip today. So I didn't fish today. So I don't know how much the water temp has dropped. But listen, watch what I tell you. In next week, if you follow the Lake Fork guides, nobody's really been posting a lot of pictures of big fish. A few here, a few there. Nothing significant. Watch what happens in the next week. They may not post them next week, but sometime within the next couple of weeks, these will be fish they're catching next week. It's fixing to go down. This cold front right here, it's about to go down in a big kind of way. So this is great timing to start getting on the water a lot. There's a lot of folks that are deer hunting, a lot of folks that are chasing football games and
duck hunting, teal season.
Duck hunting, and a lot of people are pulled off the water this time of year. It's not nearly as crowded as it is in the spring. But guys, these fish are focused on one thing. They're focused on one thing, and that's eating. All they want to do is eat right now. And that makes for some challenges for us, but a lot of fun for us because we can catch them a lot of different ways. And I think arguably everybody's favorite way would probably be topwater. Like if you took a consensus out there and you took the vote, the biggest winner of your favorite technique would be some type of a topwater, right? Well, we're going to talk about a bunch of different topwaters tonight. Ronnie's going to start us off with Buzzbaits. I'm going to follow up with some hard bait style topwaters. We're going to talk about topwater fishing as it relates to the fall pattern that's happening and is going to continue to accelerate going forward. So, Ronnie?
Well, we talked earlier, I mentioned buzzbait fishing, so Billy thought that'd be a great topic, and he's going to follow up, like you said, with hard baits. And so a buzzbait, in my opinion, is one of the best. What are you laughing at, dog?
I can't even look at you, man.
Now I can't look at you. Security.
Go ahead.
He's literally 3 times your size. I'm not going to help you. I will run.
I'm not putting up with this. You may talk to your wife and kids like that.
Here we go. I've heard this line so many times.
So buzzbaits are one of my favorite tactics. There's a couple reasons. I can cover a lot of water. I've got ADHD, all kinds of different disorders and stuff, and so I like to burn and turn, and I like to cover a lot of water, and I like to fish fast. And so buzzbait allows me to do that. And it also allows me to catch big fish. It's you can throw it anywhere. You can make pinpoint accurate casts. You can throw it When it's cloudy outside, you can throw it when it's sunny outside. And I'll kind of cover some of that with you guys. Now, my favorite buzzbait is going to be a standard, just plain Jane Sandtone. This is an older Sandtone buzzbait. And this one's got a clacker on it. Now, here's what I'm going to tell everybody about buzzbaits. Buzzbaits are no different than anything else. Let's say there's a big tournament going on with 100 anglers. The guy that's throwing the bait that loses his, let's say I fished with a guy the other day and we were fishing and we had a little worm on it, and he ran out of worms and he was just mentally done.
We got a couple chairs. There's a couple more chairs over here on this side.
The reality is, it's all about confidence. It's all about what we have confidence in and what we like to throw. So I'll say this about a buzzbait: it needs to make a unique sound. And I don't know what that uniqueness might be to you, but a lot of times a high-pitched squeal, the clacker. Some people like a double buzz. Some people like a three-blade buzz. I like to take my buzzbait and let it, and this is a little pro tip, if you will. I like to sit it right there in the passenger seat. You know what I'm talking about, where your rod sits like that? Because the wind will catch that blade. And when you're driving down the lake, you're driving on the road, that blade just, it's going real fast, it starts to squeak. I used to hear or read stuff about pros putting it on their antenna on their car, you know, and driving on the road, and it starts to loosen up and get a good squeal to it. This buzzbait right here is just my go-to buzzbait. It's a Sandtone half ounce or 3/8 ounce, and that for me doesn't depend on anything other than wind. If it's really windy, I might throw a half ounce because I'll show you guys in a minute how to tune a buzzbait. But this is just a plain nickel and white buzzbait. This is just a great all-around buzzbait. This is what I'm going to throw about 50% of the time when I'm throwing a buzzbait. Fall buzzbait to me is a little different than springtime buzzbait. If you guys will remember, and we had a seminar on this, in the springtime I throw a little different buzzbait. I've thrown this buzzbait for a long time. This is a War Eagle brand buzzbait, and it's got, you guys see how big that blade is right there? This is my cold water. This comes out in February, and it allows me to slow the buzzbait down. And just real quick, we'll go over this, and this is pretty simple stuff. The tighter the blade is, the more cupped it is, the faster it's going to run, and the more opened it is, the slower it's going to run. And you can just kind of take it and bend it and kind of, you know, make sure it looks good. Your buzzbaits don't need to be tuned. All right, most of my buzzbaits run left, and I want them to run left, and that just makes me cast to the right of whatever my target is. If it's a dock or if it's a stump or something like that, I'm going to cast to the right of it. I'm going to run that buzzbait into it. But the hotter, the warmer the water, the faster you want it. The colder the water, the slower you want it. Or the dirtier the water, the slower you want it. You know, if you're in some Caddo or Red River or something like that, and the water's pretty off-colored, you might
anything that has to do with Louisiana, basically.
You might opt to some slower type buzzbaits. Otherwise, I'm going to throw your standard blade buzzbait.
They keep it a little extra dirty over in Louisiana.
They do. That water's a little. They just let it
go. We talking about water?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's dirty. It's definitely dirty in more ways than one over there. I throw my buzzbait on this rod right here, and I'm going to talk to you guys about why. I throw this on a 7.3 medium heavy action rod. This is a Kistler Z-Bone, and I throw it on this rod just because it's got some bend to it. And it's important that those bass have the ability to get those that buzzbait in their mouth, and that you're not ripping it out. One thing that we do as anglers is we tend to jerk a little early. It's usually not an issue with a buzzbait because you don't have to set the hook. You just have to let them have it. And so I opt for a medium heavy action rod. Now, that's not all the time, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this is just a standard white and chartreuse with a gold blade. This is a great combination for cloudy, windy weather. The mornings, and I've got a trailer hook on this one, and I would, if I can get away with it, I'm throwing a trailer hook on a buzzbait. There's too many times that a big fish will slap at that squeal, and I caught a big one the other day, and I caught it actually on the trailer hook in the bottom of the gill. She came up and slapped at it, and I caught her. 50-pound braid on mine. Do you throw 50 or
on buzzbait?
Yeah, or 65.
Yeah, no, I go 50.
Yeah,
a lot.
I think 50. It's all you need. You don't want to overpower your wire and tear your buzzbait up. And I'll throw a 7.
I'll even, and this is weird. This is weird, I know, but it's something unique a little bit that I do. Is I'll throw like 20-pound fluorocarbon on a buzzbait because with most topwaters, you don't want to throw fluorocarbon because it sinks, but with the buzzbait, it's not an issue because your whole line's out of the water the whole time anyway.
Yeah.
Because the bait stayed on top of the reeling
that's
constantly.
true.
But I'll throw fluorocarbon to avoid the damage to the wire.
Right.
You know, if I'm fishing real heavy vegetation or something with it, then it's a little different story.
Right. Yeah, and I'm throwing braid about I'm throwing braid 100% of the time on mine. I'm throwing 50-pound braid now. We're gonna switch buzzbaits in a minute. We're gonna go up, but I'm throwing it on a high-speed reel. Okay, I would advise to not throw a low-speed reel on a buzzbait. I wouldn't throw a 6 gear ratio. I would throw a 7 or an 8 or a 9 or whatever you got. Just allows you to get that buzzbait out of the water. One of the most important things on a buzzbait is the way that you cast and the way that you retrieve. You have to cast the buzzbait a certain way or it's going to backlash. It's going to catch wind a lot. You know, that blade likes to get caught up in the cast. So you've got to make a good roll cast and try to essentially it's like throwing a deep diving crankbait. One of the biggest difference between a guy that throws a deep diving crankbait far and one that doesn't is a spiral. It's no different throwing a football. You got to make that bait spiral. And so you want to be able to get the bait out, get some distance, and switch hands in midair. And I was fishing with my son the other day, and this is something that I made him work on in practice, is throw your buzzbait, and as it's in midair, switch hands. And so as soon as it gets ready to hit the water, you're slowing it down, and it hits the water, and your rod's up, and you're clicking it. So that buzzbait, as soon as that buzzbait hits the water, it's moving. And the more you throw it, the more proficient you'll get at it, and it won't have that initial, that if you guys throw a buzzbait, it hits the water and you spin it and it goes, and then it goes to that speed. You want it to hit the water and come out of the water at that speed. And I think that having a high-speed reel is a really big deal with that. You can always slow, like Billy said, he's gone to all 7-speed reels from those parts because he can always slow down. Same thing with a buzzbait. In the winter, when I'm throwing that, or early spring, I start in about mid-February. I think my first one this year was like March 3rd or 4th. Remember that? I caught it in Running Creek. But I was gone all February, so I didn't get a chance. But
well, we didn't really have any of the. We had one warming trend this February.
And I literally wasn't here. Remember, I didn't get back till right back.
What I'm telling you is you didn't miss the buzzbait bite.
Yeah, it just didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
And
there was 1 week where it happened.
And I think when will they bite a buzzbait? When they can reach it. That's the way I look at it. Same with a frog.
That's a good way to put it.
If they can reach it, they'll bite it. If they're shallow, they'll bite it. I like to fish it around cover. It doesn't matter what. I love it around grass, over the top of grass. I'm not a big fan of throwing it in open water. It does work, but if there's submerged grass, you got grass a foot or so under, I think you can, especially on a sunny day, you can pull them out of there.
Well, you say you're not a fan of throwing in open water, and we're going to talk about these here in a minute, but if I'm throwing an open water bait, and we know on topwaters that they will blow up and miss it. Like we know, you've talked about that's why you use a trailer hook. Well, why wouldn't I want 6 points hanging off instead of 1 or 2? If I'm gonna fish open water, I'll just fish this, and I'll have a better chance of hooking them up when they slap at it.
Yeah, and that would be and that whopper plopper is a great bait for what I just mentioned, which is open water with about a submerged vegetation under it.
Yeah.
Especially when that thing doesn't work when there's any wind. But right now I'm throwing this in the backs of creeks, and I'm throwing it most mornings. I'm like I said, I'm starting out most mornings with the chartreuse and white with the gold blade. When that sun gets up and I've got a good chop blowing in or over some grass, I switch to the white and the chrome or the nickel. And like I said, both on a trailer hook, 7.3 medium heavy. Now here's where I'm going to switch rods. I'm going to switch rods when I make an addition to this bait. There's times where they're just not eating my buzzbait real well, or maybe there's a little bit more clarity, or the vegetation's thick and I want something to go across the top of it. And so I'll switch over to maybe a swim bait or a horny toad as a trailer. And both of these baits allow this, it gives it a different look, number one. It's a little bit more realistic, and it'll help it get through the vegetation a lot of times. And so for that particular deal, I will actually go to a 7.6 heavy rod. And simply because I'm adding almost a half. I mean, those skinny dippers weigh like 3/8 or a half an ounce. So I can throw all the line off with that horny toad. So you're adding a lot of weight. So I don't want to put that much weight on that 7.3 medium heavy. So I'm throwing a 7.6 heavy with some good bend. And this is a rod that I've had a while. So it's a 7.6 heavy, extra fast. So it's got a really good tip. And I'm throwing it on 65. You would be fine with 50. I would probably throw 50, but I'm switching this rod in and out between a buzzbait and a regular horny toad. If I'm in thick, matted up grass, or if I'm around lily pads and I'm wanting to throw my buzzbait, a lot of times I will opt to throw the buzzbait with a horny toad or even a skinny dipper. The skinny dipper is getting me bit right now, is why I've got it on there. When that sun gets up, and it's just a little better profile, but it also creates a reaction strike. Folks, make no mistake about it. The only reason you're throwing this bait right here is to tick them off and make them react. I mean, it's no different than you swatting at a fly. You just want that bass to react to it, and you want to be able to cover water and get a. And this is an old buzzbait, and it's not going to do it. But it's this thing right here. Squeal. I mean, I'm talking about squeals. You can. It's actually obnoxious, and you can put a trailer hook on this. What I like to do is. Does everybody know what heat shrink tubing is? You guys probably don't. You young guys. It's this little plastic piece of tubing, and you cut a little piece, put it over the eye of your trailer hook, and then get a lighter and heat it up, and it shrinks down on it and it gets real tight. And you can thread that over the top of this, and it sticks that hook up. You don't really have to throw a trailer hook as much on this. It's not a bad idea. The problem is, usually if I'm throwing this or this, I'm throwing it in an area that a trailer hook's not necessarily ideal. I'm in thicker vegetation, stuff like that.
You ever, let me say buzzbait. You ever season or break in your buzzbait? Like I'll take the pliers.
Yeah, you missed that. You missed
Did
that
I miss
part.
that?
Yeah.
You roughed that up?
Well, what I'll do is I'll put it over in the passenger seat.
Yeah,
and
let it
just
spin.
for hours.
Well,
and
I'll
hours.
do. Yeah, that's what that was the next thing I was gonna say. But I'll also take like pliers and the teeth on your pliers and just kind of grab it and just rub it, and then grab it and rub it, and grab it and rub it, and get your teeth on your pliers to kind of chew this little rivet up a little bit, and it gives it a rough texture where it rubs against it, and it gives it some extra noise. Makes it get a little bit louder. Yeah. And then you put it in the passenger rod deal and let it hang while you're running down the lake, and it breaks it in.
You get that high squeal, and you'll notice. I mean, it's no different than a crankbait. There'll be some that catch more fish for you, and some that don't. And this is something that'll tend to catch more fish. Now, I'm going to kind of go from there and make a quick switch. Anybody have any questions right now? I throw a buzzbait a lot. I mean, a whole lot. I throw a frog and a buzzbait a lot, especially this time of year. Early in the year, I throw the buzzbait a lot, and then right now, for about the last month, I've been throwing it most mornings. And it's, we've caught a lot of good fish on it. No double digits, but we've had some 6, 7, 8 pounders on it, and even more that have not got it.
It will catch a double digit though.
It will definitely catch.
Definitely know of some that have come on.
Yeah, and I've had some double digit fish on it. It's a great bait. I threw it at Pines. Did y'all just fish Pines, right? So for the guys listening at home, quick Pines update. I was out there for 3 days. One day I was out there with my son fishing, so I'm not going to count that, but I was out there 3 days. And 2 of those days, it was just awesome. I mean, the best buzzbait bite I've had this year. We caught 20-something fish 2 different days on a buzzbait. All day long, early morning, all day throughout the evening. The white buzzbait was getting bit real well. The black buzzbait was okay. Definitely the white. I think right now,
it's hard to not go with white.
Yeah, they're so focused on that silver white flash that's all over the lake. That white excels. The other bait I want to talk about real quick is just a regular horny toad. Now, we're gonna call it a buzz frog. This is an old school horny toad. This is my favorite. I throw it anywhere I can't throw a buzzbait, or anywhere I would throw a buzzbait, but I want something a little bit more subtle. This is a great bait over lily pads. One of the best ones that you can throw. And people kind of have gotten away from it. They throw a ribbit a lot, and a ribbit's really good, and it creates a lot of noise. The difference is, if I'm going to throw a ribbit, I would opt to throw a buzzbait if I'm trying to get more noise. If I want something subtle that creates a little bit of movement, I throw the horny toad. I throw this bait on the same rod that I throw the heavier buzzbait with the plastic on it. I throw it on a 7-foot medium Kistler helium rod, or 7-foot heavy, excuse me. And then I throw it on an owner twist lock 5/0 hook. And this 5/0 hook is great. It matches up perfect with the horny toad. It actually, it's a screw lock, and then it fits in the very bottom of the slit. It goes perfectly through there. So I've had a lot of success. I've caught thousands of fish on this bait right here. I throw it on a 65-pound braid. I make as far of a cast as I can, and I just reel it. There's no special pace. I don't let it drop in holes or anything like that. One thing I will do, if it's running with the hook up, I don't think that's that big of a deal. But if it's trying to run with the hook faced up a lot, I'll put some tape weight on it. Everybody familiar with the tape weight? Storm suspended dots are my favorite. They're easy. The longer ones are a little bit trickier to get them right because you got to wrap them all the way down. These you can just make 2.5 wraps and just kind of go down the shank of the hook. And one important thing is you don't want to get those weights so low that your plastic won't go over the weight if it tries to slide up. So you guys can kind of see that right there. I've got a little bit of tape weight on there, and it just keeps that hook down on that horny toad when you're throwing it. And this owner 5/0 hook has got a great keeper on it, and it's strong enough to withstand that 7-foot flipping or 7.5-foot flipping stick and 65-pound braid.
That's the deal, is get one that fits that frog that won't
get
bend
one,
out.
yeah, that won't bend out. And that's the tricky part. And I said open water, and make no mistakes about it. A buzzbait is an absolute awesome dock fishing bait. I throw it around docks a lot early on, and again up into the sun. If let's take Glade Creek. You got some wind blowing into the back of Glade Creek, and there's grass, and it's bluebird skies, but you got a good chop on the water. That buzzbait will catch some monster fish. Early on in the morning, you don't have any wind, but you got some good cloud cover, or you got the sun hasn't popped up. That buzzbait will get some of those big girls to pop up, especially where you're seeing the bait and stuff like that. So there's other baits that Billy's going to cover that'll fish better in certain situations.
Can I add something into your buzz frog deal? It works throughout the year, but I think either or. But I think in the fall, it's probably just in my head, But if it's in your head, it's in your head. Right?
I think that's
so.
Even better than a skinny dipper or than a horny toad at times.
In the fall, especially when they're so focused on bait fish, I'll actually take this bait right here and get a heavy wire owner 6/0 EWG style hook. That same hook he's talking about in a 6/0, so it just has a little more weight to it, a little more heavier gauge. And I'll rig these swim baits on it with no weight on the hook at all. Just the hook itself is the weight. And fish it just like the buzz frog, right on the surface. And
that's actually what this bait was designed to do. What you're talking about. This bait was designed. The skinny dipper was designed to fish in Florida.
It's hard to find a swim bait that'll stay true without weight on the belly, and that one will. And another one that will, that's brand new, is the 6 Sense swim bait.
And I haven't got any of those. I need to get some of those. I'm excited about that.
It's brand new, and so 6 Sense has a little swim bait that's in that same category, the small little 5-inch swim baits. And it will run really well, and it kind of has a wobble. It'll wander and wobble on you, but this one does too.
Yeah, that's what you want.
But it'll still stay upright. The other ones will just turn over on their side completely when it's that small. When you got that little plastic and that hook, it just won't hold it right unless it's designed perfectly to do so, and those two do it.
So I'll show you guys one more thing real quick, and then I'll let Billy kind of take over from there. But I want to show you guys when I tie this knot. Obviously, on this particular bait, I'm going to tie a Palomar knot.
Is that what you use every time you use braid?
Yes, I tie a Palomar knot 100%.
Me too.
I don't tie it on fluorocarbon. I tie any, and I'm not a big knot guru. I feel like I catch as many big fish as anybody in the country, and my knots hold up, and your knots hold up, and most guides' knots hold up.
If you fish around here, if you fish around here every day, you're going to know how to tie good knots pretty quick.
And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a buzzbait now, or I'm going to tie a Palomar knot. Now, here's what's tricky about a buzzbait. It's the same with the whopper plopper. You got a lot of bait, especially if you got a trailer hook or something else hanging off. So you got to use a big tag in. Well, you guys probably aren't as particular about your line as we are. I don't like going through a bunch of line because it can be pretty expensive, especially on braid. But you got to have a big loop to get this through, right? Everybody with me on this? You got to have a big loop to get that big bait, especially you got a trailer hook and you got stretch around the trailer hook. So what I'll do is I'll pull that up with my finger, and then I'm going to take my main line as I'm pulling this. I'm going to take that main line and just cinch that main line down. See that? And I've still got a little bit. I didn't do it good, but I'm going to pull that main line first, and it'll actually pull some of that slack out of that tag line to where, especially on a whopper plopper, you don't have a tag line. And that's great on glide baits as well if somebody ties a Palomar or Alabama rigs. But it doesn't eat up a foot of tag line. Make sense? Awesome. Any questions on the buzzbait fishing? It's definitely right now, if you don't throw a buzzbait a lot, right now is the time. You will get bites on a buzzbait at Lake Fork right now. If you throw a buzzbait around grass right now, you're anywhere around. That's true. Pines, I got a lot of bites. Anywhere in East Texas right now, if you're throwing a buzzbait in the back of the pockets, the mouth of the pocket, anywhere there's grass and where there's wind, you're gonna get bites. You might not hook up with all of them, but we're getting a lot of bites in the mornings on a buzzbait. So, anyways, any questions? Go ahead.
So we get a bite on those things, it bends the front end out of whack. Is there any trick to getting that?
Yeah, you know,
in order?
it's no different than a spinnerbait. No different than a spinnerbait. You know, the angles are what matters. The hook and the arm have got to match up, and then this arm and this arm have to match up. You want everything in line, straight down the gig line, if you will. Straight down the center, you want everything, and you just bend it the same as you would a spinnerbait. Get that front, and there's a lot of buzz baits. Now there was one, I can't remember the name of the company, but they have it where the blade will clack the arm, and I think that's a unique deal.
The head too.
Or the head, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd follow that up to say,
Yeah.
is there a certain angle that, I know each one of those are designed differently, but where's
Yeah,
that?
just to get it as I like it as close as I can get to where it'll run good. And I want my buzz bait to move one way or the other. If it's not, I'll tweak it a little bit to get it to run. And then again, cupping the blade in and out to speed it up and speed it down,
Yeah.
or slow it down.
Cupping the blade, and also, if you open it up this way, you can go slower with it. If you pinch it down, you'll have to go faster. Okay, so, and it's kind of ironic because Ronnie said this is the bait he used in the springtime because he can slow it down, and if you look, it has a more open angle. It's the same thing with a spinnerbait. You know, with a spinnerbait, if you open up the arms, you can slow it down more. If you pinch it down, it's going to go faster. The buzzbait's the same way. It's just drag.
And then
water.
of course, the blade, the size of the blade's gonna.
This is going to make a much more dramatic difference in your speed than this will, but it's just a little subtle difference when you open the arm up versus closing it. It's all about the drag in the water. So the more drag you create, the slower you can go with the bait. The less drag you create, the faster you can go with it.
Yeah. If you cup those blades way up, that thing will just
Yeah.
really fast. So. Cool. Any questions? Awesome. I got to head to some ball games. So, man, thank you guys for coming out. Great to see everybody except for you two. Everybody else, great to see. I appreciate it, brother. I'll holler at you later
Absolutely.
on. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
So Ronnie's got Wednesday, and I actually just had Friday cancel on me. So if anybody needs some help next week for the tournament, holler at us. You going with it? We'll see you, bud. Good to see you. In case y'all didn't know, there's only one appropriate way to untangle treble hook baits. It's like that right there. You just shake them real hard, they all come undone. I got a mess of treble hooks over here. See this? See? See how easy that is? That's the only correct way to do it. Like when you reach in your tackle box and 37 are hooked together, just start shaking real hard. It'll come loose. Yeah, so the buzzbait's great. And all top waters are great in the fall. And it's a real simple reason why. The reason why is there's fish really shallow that are chasing bait. And they're really shallow. So you can get these baits right next to them because they're in this much water a lot of times. And two, I think it's a little easier to fool them with the top water because the silhouette gets a little more broken up, especially if you have wind or whatever. If they're looking up into that glare, they can't really get a real good look at it most of the time. So, a lot of times we focus as bass fishermen on trying to, match the hatch and trying to fool the fish and make them think, that's the whole point of bass fishing. You're trying to make them think in a lot of ways that what you're throwing that's not real is real. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to fish it in a way where they don't get a good look at it. And topwaters is a great way to do that. It creates ripples on the surface. It creates disturbance. All these baits that we're talking about create activity on the surface that disrupts their line of sight. And all they know is there's something that looks alive to them. There's something moving right there. And they're wanting to eat everything they can this time of year, so it's a natural deal. Before we break into topwaters, I will tell you guys one thing because I know you guys are fishing the tournament this weekend, and I know some of you guys are going to be fishing this weekend, and you're going to be fishing a lot over the next couple weeks. People that are crazy about bass fishing are about to be fishing a lot. So a shad pattern lipless crankbait needs to be tied on right now. All of our bigger fish the last couple of days are coming on a shad pattern lipless crankbait. I'm using the 6-inch Quake 70, a half-ounce bait, just in a shad, regular like white, gray shad pattern. But that's just happened this week with that last cold front, where that bait they're off that little one. The bigger bait is pushed back in there with the little bait, and the bigger fish are pushing back in there. And that bigger lipless crankbait, that half-ounce version, is really, you got to have that tied on it now. And we're not talking about that because I've talked about a lipless crankbait a million times. That's why we're not doing the seminar on it tonight. But, it's a pretty simple bait to fish. You kind of throw it out there and reel it in either. It's like driving a bus. They're either going to get on it or they ain't, You don't really even have to set the hook. You just reel, and then when they bite, just turn the reel a little faster. That's basically all you got to do, try to keep them down. The fall, doing what I do, where I'm trying to help you guys and try to clue you into what you can do to catch the most fish that you can out here. The fall is one of the most difficult times for me to decide what to talk to you guys about. Because we could talk about a swim bait right now. We could talk about a swim jig right now. We could talk about square bills. We could talk about lipless baits, jerk baits. I mean, even I can catch them. I don't throw jerk baits, and I can catch them on jerk bait right now. You know, like, we could talk about anything. I mean, you can go out there and just throw a Texas rig worm and catch a lot of fish right now. A lot of different ways can work. So we're going to talk about topwater tonight. But fish your confidence right now. It's a great time to do that. So probably my favorite bait, and it's just a personal deal for me because I've just had a lot of success on it, but the walking style baits. I love the walking style baits, especially in the early part of the fall. You know, the water's still in the 70s right now. It may not be by next week, but right now the water's still in the 70s. And when we're coming from summer to fall, I really like the walking style baits. This is the Dogma 110, I believe, from 6 Sense Fishing. This is a great walking bait. The thing I like about these walking baits here is these Dogma walking baits from 6 Sense perform really well in chop. When it's windy and you got some wave activity, and especially this big one. This big one works. I mean, I've never seen another bait that will walk in big waves. Like, you can fish this out on shallow main lake points in big waves, and it'll actually walk. You know, normally you throw like an old Zara spook or something, and you can't. It just gets messed up. The waves knock it off course, and you can't get it to do this. And if you feel this bait, you'll know why. It's a lot heavier than a Zara spook, and I'll pass it around and let you feel it. But how do I decide what size topwater I'm going to throw? Well, this is Lake Fork. I want to try to target bigger fish. I'm not tournament fishing. I'm not trying to catch unders. If I was in you guys' shoes, until I had a limit of unders, I'd be throwing smaller topwater. So when I talk about a whopper plopper, I'd be throwing the smaller one. When I'm talking about this, I'll be throwing the junior size of this, the smaller size. Yeah, exactly. So if I'm talking about poppers, I'd be throwing the smaller poppers. Whatever the topwater is, I'd downsize my bait if I was you guys fishing a tournament where you're trying to catch the under the slot fish, or even if you're just a tournament fisherman on a regular lake where you're trying to get your limit, I would downsize my topwater. But out here, and fishing out here every day, I kind of get clued into where the groups of the gizzard shad are, the bigger bait fish. I get to see them every day and kind of know the general area they're hanging out in from day to day. This time of year, you will literally see the gizzard shad swim right by your boat. And so you kind of get an education on where they are. Well, when I get in those areas, and I try to stay in those areas because I want to try and catch the bigger fish, I'm going to go to the big one, the big one. Like, if I'm seeing gizzard shad visually, I'll go to the big baits, the big topwaters, the big whopper ploppers, everything else. If I'm not really seeing gizzard shad, I haven't like verified that they're there, I'll go with the medium size just to kind of cover both ends and go middle of the road. And that goes for every topwater we're going to talk about. So why do I like this one so much? Well, this time of year, fish are schooling. Even if you don't see them on the surface, they're schooling. That's what they're doing. Just like when you see them schooling in the summertime, and you will see them schooling on the surface in the fall, but even when you don't see that same thing that you see on the surface is happening just below the surface right now. And this bait, doing this the way it does, when you walk it, if you ever watch a shad that's running from a bass, he don't swim in a straight line. He's going every which direction he can. And this just really imitates that the best. And another thing that you guys need to know is I'm fishing all these baits real fast right now. Like, very fast. And we'll continue to fish them that way probably till about November. Until that water starts getting into the 65 and below area, I'm going to fish those baits as fast as I can fish them. So that top water, it's not going. Normally I tell people, like, during summertime and stuff, you start out with a spook in the morning in the summertime. I'll tell them what you want is kind of it's almost a pause in between your walks. You just want to go choo, 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 choo. That's what I try to do in the spring and in the summertime and all that. Right now, that bait's like, I'm going, man, it's like it's running from them. I'm literally trying to make these fish trigger to chase it down as if that bait fish is running away from them on all these baits. So the popper the same way. So this is the splashback popper. This is a great popper. Now, this is a special popper. It's uniquely designed. It has kind of a triangular shape. It's got a V bottom like a boat almost. If you guys can see that, can y'all see that? Okay. And what that does when you pop it, so you go pop, pop, pop. When it settles, it goes.
Just shaking.
When it settles, that was hit the edit button on that one. But when you pop it, when it settles, it goes. As it stops popping, it sits there and shakes at him a little bit with that V bottom. And I can't tell you how many times I go pop, and it goes, poosh. You know, like this is that little trimmer just gets them. But I'll fish this bait very fast. Normally in the springtime, I'll go, my favorite cadence in the springtime with a popper, which this is a great bait early. When fish are on beds, this is one of the best baits you can throw because you can fish it and keep it in one area for a very long time. You can just barely pop it and it'll go bloop and just stay right where it's at. It'll bloop and it'll stay right over their bed. And if you know where some fish are bedded at and you can throw this around it, you will catch them. The females they'll just come up and suck it, you know. But normally, yeah, my favorite cadence when I'm covering water in the post pond or whatever with a popper is to go pop, 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 pop. Well, again, what we're doing now is we're going pop, 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 pop. Pop, 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 pop. So we're just making it run like it's a bait fish run that stops. You know? And so that's kind of how we're fishing that. So everything's real fast. Whopper plopper, same deal. In the springtime, I want to barely keep this blade turning right here. I just barely want that blade right there to be rotating through the water. I just enough speed to keep that blade going. Thump, 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 and it barely kicks up any water. Like it's kicking up water, but the water's not splashing up. Right now, I'm running that thing. It's throwing water 6 inches to a foot above it. I mean, I'm burning it. Because here's the deal. They are in that mindset. They are chasing stuff down every day of their life. Throughout the day, off and on, they are literally chasing bait. So I'm going to try and trigger that instinct in them right now. So we're going to go real fast.